Tony, water level still not at all good.
No, it's a month on now since the last round of water levels were done of the monitor bores, and I've got 2 or 3 bores that I like to follow quite closely, because they're bores that are deep enough that they're the ones that are most accessed for irrigation water. And there's one in mid Canterbury, south of Ashburton, and this time last year it was really high. And by now we had about 6 metres of groundwater recovery from the irrigation season. This year we've had 1. So we're into the beginning of July now. We've probably got a month of recharge left in that bore, in that aquifer. It's sort of a bit scary, really, because if we do have another dry summer as being predicted, then we could suddenly have limited groundwater supply. Not that the groundwater will run out, but water levels could drop to the point that pumps won't be able to pump their consented take. So we're going to have reduced yields out of some of these bores, and that's a real concern. And interestingly, in this part of mid Canterbury, if you head up towards the Aylesbury area, the water level in the last month has actually dropped by over 100 millimetres. So that tells us that there has not been any recharge of water. That's nearly 90 metres deep, that bore. It had started to recover. That tells us that we're not getting any recharge into that bore. Now last year it was 11 metres higher than it is now at this time of the year. So again, that's sort of quite, for me it's a little bit scary that we've got like a month, maybe 6 weeks left of the winter before things start to grow again. If the predicted El Nino arrives, then it's probably going to arrive with vengeance in the early spring, and so suddenly we could be irrigating early, and it will, we suddenly then have the issue of again these self-limiting bores, just simply because of where the water levels might be come springtime, and when everybody turns on, it drops really quickly.
Tony, is this because we've had a lot of dry southerlies come through New Zealand?
Yeah, we've had a lot of dry southerlies. I mean, we had a snowfall last week, but we need to remember that snow might only be somewhere between 10 and maybe 20% equivalent. So you might have got 40 centimetres of snow, 400 millimetres of snow. But you're going to end up with about 40 millimetres to maybe 50 millimetres of actual precipitation that can get into the ground. When we get groundwater recharge, we need large slugs of rain. We need those rainfalls that we hate coming in, or snowfalls that we hate coming in from the southeast or the east, that last for 3 or 4 days. Not a storm that comes through in a day or half a day.
Like the lower South Island, not lower North Island.
Lower North Island, yeah. I mean, God forbid, I hope we don't get one of those, because that was that was an awful amount of rain in 24 hours basically. It's nice to get it spread over a couple of days if we can dial it up. So if you've got any context, then that would be really good.
No, I don't have any direct lines. I'm afraid it's a very expensive toll call.
It is, yeah. So we need those, and so it's really interesting. I mean, the snow even affects things like the Opua Dam, for example. And anybody that's read the news this week, it's struggling to refill, and unless there are some significant precipitation events, much more than the snow that they've got that will melt come the spring, then again the Opua Dam is going to have limited supply this coming.
Because they had restrictions last season, didn't they?
They were totally turned off in February. So there just simply wasn't, and in fact I think I'm correct in that there wasn't enough water to actually supplement the flow in the Opua River, which is one of the reasons why the Opua scheme went in. And it's not that was never predicted to happen, but it suddenly came to roost last year when, and they made a conscious effort in 2014 not to actually generate electricity so that they could preserve some storage because of the way the winter was going.
The scary thing is that something like the Opua, I mean, the bankers in Timaru have said you can do this, this and this and this because you've got the guaranteed irrigation.
Yep.
And now it's not there.
Yeah, I mean, no matter what the water source, there is a risk involved with that water. I mean, everybody thinks that even groundwater is highly reliable, but if we do not get recharge events to refill what we need to take out in the summer, then it becomes a less reliable system. And in the past it was very resilient because we didn't have as many groundwater takes for water. Now we have these zones effectively allocated, that we know how much we can take. And when we don't get those recharge events, then we need to be very cognizant of what the spring might bring.
Ooh, I mean, there's nothing you can do.
No, there is nothing we can do. It's like the farmers in North Canterbury. We're completely at the mercy of the weather or the climate. So weather and then the long-term climate, and we're at that mercy this year. And these are the periods we don't want to see, where we get a sequence of high demand water requirements, whether it's for natural flows out into the lowland streams or for irrigation takes, and low recharge winters. Central
Plains system, I see there's whopping great big pipes being put into the ground.
Yep, I mean that is in a way a saving grace, I guess. One of the saving graces, in that a lot of the upper plains areas, and especially that area Dunsandel to the Rakaia River and north and west, sorry, a lot of those bores are going to get tipped over into surface water, and a lot of those farmers will also buy storage in Lake Coleridge to ensure that their surface water is more reliable. So suddenly those really deep groundwater bores will be not surrendered, but they'll be retired, and so there won't be as great a take out of those, and that will help the groundwater system as a whole.
So that is a pretty good thing. What's the latest on Ruataniwha? Because Manawatu's got one looming, you were saying.
Yep, the Wairarapa has one looming.
Yep.
Ruataniwha, we're still waiting for the consent process to work its way through. I thought when we last did an interview that we were close to getting a decision about the one condition in the consent that is the killer. It's the nitrate levels in the Tukituki River. I thought we were really close to that pretty close to that. Still nothing has come out, so yep, it's a wait and see. And once that happens, then and it's a viable consent, it's a workable condition, then we'll see that scheme get moving and start turning some soil.
Because once again, this is where the world has to go, isn't it?
Yeah, we have used up all the easily available water in New Zealand. So we've used up all the run of the river water. In fact, in some cases we've over allocated the run of the river water. We've reached the limit of what we can reliably take out of the groundwater systems. Your option then is to find places where you can store water.
That's another whole conversation.
And that's another whole conversation, and it's very expensive.
Tony, thank you very much indeed.